Hi everyone, Stjepan here. I'm going to show you the last round league game I played a couple of days after I came back from Hvar, a week later actually. So I'm facing a strong opponent. He used to be 2200, I want to say, maybe even higher, but his rating dropped mainly because I don't think he tries enough, but he is really good. I don't want to assume anything. I don't know anything about the man. I just know about him, but he is very experienced and very strong. So again, I was debating whether to play e4 or d4. Ended up going for something I've never played before. I played d4, and after d5 I wanted to go into a line of the Semi-Slav. He usually plays the Semi-Slav. He does sometimes play something else, the Czech Slav and other stuff, but in this game he did play the Semi-Slav. So knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, e6. Okay, I played e3. He played knight bd7. This is all very standard. I've played this from the black side in every game I could, like since I started playing chess. And the most annoying variation to face is the queen c2 Anti-Meran, also known as the Stolz variation, I think. Although I'm not sure why, I think everybody calls this the Anti-Meran. And that's queen c2. And here, in some of his games, and I was hoping I would get this on the board, he played pawn to a6. And pawn to a6 is really a waste of time. It tries to play in for b5, but the problem is that after a6 I can continue with normal development like b3, and then if he ever plays bishop d6 I can then play c5. So a6 isn't really a move that's played today. It's played sometimes, but white should hold the advantage. In this position he played bishop d6 and offered the draw. I mean, he's high rated and everything, but I don't want to draw. I wanted to play chess, especially after what happened in Hvar. I wanted to play a game regardless of how it went. I knew that he is more experienced and better than me, but I declined. Again, not because I'm assuming I'm going to win easily or anything, but because I want to play a game. The most aggressive way to play this position, and bishop d6 of course is the main move, is to play g4. Now this Shabalov attack is very strong. I actually looked at two of his games from this position. He's played bishop to b4, which is what I played when I faced the Shabalov attack, and he's played h6 once. I couldn't find a big enough advantage after h6, to be honest. I was preparing this because I knew it was an option, but if he plays bishop b4, then I'm happy. Even though I play it with black, I think white always has a small edge. But I don't like facing h6 as white. And since I've never played this, and he's probably faced this a million times, I didn't want to go into this. The main move is bishop to d3. You can also play bishop e2, but I chose b3. Again, hoping maybe he transposes into lines with a6. But he played queen e7. Queen e7 is slightly strange. The main variation by far with thousands of games is castles and bishop e2 and b6 and castles and bishop to b7 and bishop to b2 and queen e7, trying to prepare e5 and so on. But he played queen e7 straight away, and already you have to calculate e5. When his king is in the center, it should never work. I mean, it obviously doesn't work when his king is in the center, because I would have a huge attack at some point. And there are a couple of moves I have to consider here. Bishop b2, bishop e2, or bishop to d3. I don't want to play e4 straight away because my king is still in the center. I ended up playing bishop d3, even though if I'd played bishop e2, we would have gone into the main lines with b6. But I played bishop d3 because I was hoping for something rash from him. For example, if he castles, then I can castle and I'm already prepared for e4. If he plays b6, I can castle, and if bishop b7, then e4 is very dangerous. I don't think he can play e5. That's why I think queen to e7 is an inaccuracy. If he plays e5 here, then I can simply play cd5, cd5, d5, knight e5. Yeah, I don't have to take on e5, I can play knight b5. And this, I think, is going to be a great version of an IQP for me. So he takes the bishop, which is, I think, forced, otherwise he has to give up his dark squared bishop. So takes, queen takes, bishop b4 check, bishop d2 takes, and then knight takes. And once he castles, I can castle and I can have a very nice blockade. I'm controlling the e4 square. I'm not saying white is much better, but this is very, very pleasant. Especially because the main attacking piece in IQP positions is no longer on the board. So before playing bishop to d3, I was calculating this. And I came up with knight b5, and I think he rightly did not play e5. He just castled. Okay, I castled and he played h6, which I don't understand, to be honest. Well, I do understand it sort of. Maybe it gives his bishop a square at some point after e5. I don't think preventing knight g5 is important. And the main reason probably is he doesn't want h7 to be hanging. So, but I don't think h7 can ever hang. So I don't think h6 is a good move. I think he should continue with something normal like rook e8 or dc4 or e5, probably e5. But he played h6. I continued developing, bishop b2. He played rook e8. And now the debate I had in my mind, and bear in mind I have no experience in this position from either side. As black, against the Anti-Meran, I always play the early b6 and bishop b7, and then I play for e5. I sort of know the position for black, but I don't really know what the best way for white to proceed is. This position, this exact one, I didn't know. So there are a few moves to consider. Firstly, I can get my rooks to the center, which cannot be bad. I can play rook a1, I can play rook fe1, but it's not concrete. I can take on d5, which I think is bad. Because then once I follow it up with e4, my bishop on b2 isn't really that good in this IQP position, and I'm never going to get to play e5 because he's going to play e5 himself. For example, takes. Well, he could even take with the e-pawn. That's also probably okay, just controlling here. But even if I do this, something like this, I think, obviously, best case for me, it's equal. Worst case, I'm losing a piece on e4. So I had two serious candidates, c5 and e4. e4 I'm going to play anyway. The question is, should I play c5 before I play e4? If I play e4 straight away, and I think you can learn a lot from this position, it's very thematic for many openings. If I play e4 straight away, the first thing black always does is takes on c4 to make sure he isn't left with the Caro-Kann pawn structure and the bad bishop after takes, because the bishop is still on c8, it's not on f5, and because he doesn't want me to take a million times on d5 and get my rook to e1. If I play c5 and then e4, then dc4 is not an option. Now here was my calculation. d4, which seemed forced. Knight e4, which seemed forced. Bishop e4, which is forced, and then e5. And I thought, okay, I take knight e5, he takes knight e5, d e5, bishop e5, and I thought rook e1. Because then I'm let's say this rook. I don't know which rook. Maybe this rook. I don't know. I would have thought about it. So in this position, he has to move the queen. So for example, queen c7. And I have no idea if I have anything here, but I wouldn't say so. So I didn't go for this. I saw something like this in my mind. But once he moves the queen, there are no threats. So I went for a more complex position with e4. Of course, dc4. Now, bishop c4 is an option, and this I actually know from many games, this pattern of not reinforcing your center, just playing bishop takes c4, and after e5, just playing rook to d1. Because now, if he doesn't take, his bishop is bad. If he does take, I'm already on the d file, and maybe excuse me, for example, I'm going to get to play knight f5. If I can play knight f5, then my position is great. But I took with the b pawn because, of course, he's going to play e5 next move, and I wanted to play d5. I don't know why. And he did play e5, of course, and I wanted to play d5 very badly. Even though it gives up the c5 square, I was dreaming about knight h4, knight f5, and stuff like that. I couldn't see enough pressure on e4. I saw my bishop being open. I saw knight h4, knight f5, f4, attacking ideas, and so on. There were better options though. Pawn to d5 shouldn't be good. It's been played once by 2 grandmasters and black won. The engine says it's about equal. The best move should be c5. And now, of course, taking on d4 doesn't work because I win a piece. So bishop to c7, and now something like knight e2, ed4, bishop d4 should be about equal. Should be about equal. I couldn't see, I have to be honest, I didn't even consider c5 very seriously because I thought I was losing this pawn. But there's a tactical way to get away with it. The only thing I was looking at is leaving the tension in the center and playing d5. Of course, I never want to play d5. So I played d5. Again, should be about equal. He plays knight c5, which is obvious, bishop e4, bishop g4, and h3. And in this position, he played bishop h5. And now white has the advantage if white plays correctly. The weird thing is, I was hoping to be able to play knight h4, and now that it's the most obvious and best move, I didn't play it. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I didn't even consider it. I don't know why. The main reason behind d5 was to be able to occupy the f5 square and play f4, and in this position I just thought I have to reinforce my e-pawn, and I ended up playing rook fe1, which is a bad move. Now it's slightly better for black, I would say. This is simply imprecise. If I go knight h4, then there are no knight e4 tricks, obviously. If, for example, knight fe4, then I can simply take it. Knight takes. And if queen takes, the bishop is hanging. And if knight e4, then queen e4, and the knight is defended. So he cannot win a pawn. And that's not why I didn't play knight h4. So if I play knight h4 and he doesn't lose a piece, then he needs to take on e2. And I can throw in knight f5. The queen goes to, let's say, c7, and then queen e2. And this was my dream position. This is what I wanted to achieve. And I didn't go for it. And it's forced. I mean, after knight h4, he has to take. If he plays bishop g6, I just take it. Okay, I ended up playing rook fe1. And now, of course, knight h4 would have been my next candidate immediately. But he played bishop g6. And I thought, okay, I'd achieved something. The bishop is kind of misplaced. I don't think e4 is going to fall. And I played knight to d2. The idea behind knight d2 is to maybe reinforce the pawn with bishop f3, but also to challenge the annoying knight on c5. If I'm given time, if he plays a nothing move, for example, king h8, then I go knight b3. And this, of course, if he takes, is tremendous for me. If he goes back, again, I think is amazing for me. I think this is much better than what happened in the game, of course, but he didn't play king h8. He played rook ac8. And now there are tactical problems in the position. My queen is hanging in some positions on a diagonal and on the c file. Now he is threatening to take a pawn, basically. Of course, throwing in cd first. And I need to react. There are a couple of ways to do so. My first candidate before playing rook fe1 and knight to d2, I saw this position. I saw that rook fe1, bishop g6, knight d2 is going to be played, and then rook ac8 has to be the most obvious move, threatening a pawn. I was intending to play bishop to f1. And now after cd5, cd5, if he takes on e4, then I can just take. And my knight is defended. I'm just winning here. So he cannot do that, really. So I'm holding everything, but this seemed too passive. The other candidate I had is queen to b1, but now cd, and he actually plays knight c to d7. And I thought this would be very scary to play against. My queen is misplaced, my rook is insanely bad. Maybe bishop c5 is coming, maybe knight h5 and f5. I just didn't want to go for this. So, before playing knight to d2, I'd calculated a forcing variation. And I'm going to show you the forcing variation, but I'm going to ask you to calculate it yourself if you can. Calculate queen to d1. Does it lose a pawn? And if it doesn't lose a pawn, what's the position like? And it took me about 10 minutes to figure everything out, but I made a mistake. So try not to make the same mistake. Okay, pause the video. Okay, so I played queen to d1, and if he tries to win a pawn, I believe white should be slightly better, although black has a lot of play. That's exactly what happened in the game. This was the main variation I'd calculated, and it happened. So, which knight did he take with? Okay, I think he took with the f knight, it doesn't matter. Knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, bishop takes, bishop to g4, the point. The only way to save a piece in the exchange is to play f5, and now I take on e4, f takes e4, bishop c8, rook c8, and queen to g4. A double attack on the e4 pawn and on the c8 rook. And I thought after rook f8, which is forced, I can play queen e4, and after rook f4 I can play queen e2. And the only thing I was afraid of, and this is still what I was calculating before I played knight to d2, is what if he plays e4? What if he plays e4 with the idea of queen e5? But I just, with my bishop here, that's never happening. I just couldn't see it happening. The only other thing that I should be worried about is bishop c5, but I have a rook f1, and now he already has to be very careful. So that's what I was calculating. However, and even though that variation is correct, and it actually happened in the game the same way I just showed you, there was a way for him to win here. The idea behind bishop g4, double attacking the bishop and the rook, only works because I'm still controlling c2. If I'm not controlling c2, he has bishop c2 and he has rook c2. So what he has to do is take first. After this, I'm a clear pawn down, because if I play cd5, then again, let's go through the same thing. Knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, bishop takes. I can play bishop to b5 or bishop to g4. Bishop to g4 now fails to rook c2. And he can just take here. He could also play bishop c2, but no reason to do that. And bishop to b5 simply fails to bishop to c2. And once I play queen e2, he plays rook d8, and he's a pawn up with an amazing position. And I'd missed that. I just went for queen d1. I spent 10 minutes calculating. That wasn't enough. I needed to double check the zwischenzugs. In the game, what happened was exactly this. What I showed you already. And after queen e2, I offered the draw. He said, I'm going to think about it, and then he accepted. Objectively, I don't think anybody can make progress. My pawn isn't going anywhere. If he plays bishop c5, which should be the only move, then rook f1, queen f6. I could probably take on c6, bc6. I don't know. Well, maybe not queen f6. Maybe he can just play e4 first. e4 and then queen f6. Yeah, let's check it with the engine. After rook f1, which would have been my move had he not accepted the draw, the engine says minus 0.2, or basically all zeros. And the best move isn't e4. Even though e4 is equal, it's to take, and then play rook f8. Why can't I take? What's wrong with this? Well, there's nothing wrong with it. But yeah, he's getting the pawn back. I mean, he has a 2-1, so that could be unpleasant. In any case, it should be level, and we agreed on a draw. It's an equal position. I'm happy I didn't accept the draw when he offered it on move 6. We played a game, and I messed up with queen d1. He didn't punish me, so it was a draw. Thank you for watching. From here on, we are moving on to theory, and I'm going to be finishing the d4 playlist and finally starting the English opening in the next couple of days. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.